I realized I wasn't her partner anymore the moment she told me to make myself scarce in my own home so her ex could feel comfortable, and I decided right then to handle it like a contract that had been breached. Hey friends, please subscribe and turn on notifications, like this video, and leave a comment with your impressions. This will be a great help. Thank you. We never tire of reminding you. It's all thanks to you. I'm 38, and at the time this happened, I was living in Santa Fe, New Mexico. It was late October, that stretch when the afternoons still feel warm but the evenings turn sharp and dry. I work as a procurement manager for a public utility. It's not glamorous, but it taught me two things: get everything in writing and never argue with someone who is already committed to misunderstanding you. My girlfriend Tessa was 34. She worked in marketing for a small hospitality group, the kind that manages boutique hotels and event spaces. She was good at her job. She could make a room feel expensive with nothing but lighting and confidence. When we met, I liked that she had drive. I liked that she could talk to anyone. I thought I was the calm anchor and she was the spark. We'd been together a little over 2 years. We lived in a rental house on the south side, a stucco place with a gravel yard and a narrow carport. We de-signed the lease together, split the utilities, had a shared calendar on the kitchen iPad, the whole normal adult setup. We weren't married, but we'd been talking seriously about getting engaged, not in a flashy way, in a let's do this right way. About a month before everything blew up, we'd taken a weekend drive to Taos. On the way back, she pointed out a small jewelry shop she liked in town and said, almost casually, that she didn't want a giant ring. She wanted something simple that looked like it belonged to one person, not a display case. I listened. I made a note. Quiet people do that. So a week later, on my lunch break, I went to a reputable local jeweler and put down a deposit for a custom piece. The email confirmation came to my work address because that's what I use for anything official. The subject line was, Custom Order Deposit Receipt, Graham M. The deposit was $2,400. It wasn't impulse money. It was future money. Around the same time, we'd also reserved a small event space for an engagement dinner. Nothing huge, just immediate family and a few close friends, maybe 20 people. Tessa had insisted it needed to feel intentional. She wanted a private room at a nice restaurant off Canyon Road that did these prix-fixe menus. I was the one who signed the contract because the restaurant wanted one responsible party and my credit was straightforward. I put down $1,000 to hold the date, with a clear cancellation policy printed in plain English. Full refund if canceled at least 21 days in advance. That context matters because the disrespect didn't happen in a vacuum. It landed on top of commitments already in motion. The first sign something was off was small. Tessa started acting like our house was a stage and I was in the way of the set changes. She began taking phone calls in the laundry room with the door half shut. She started leaving the room when she got a text. She bought a new perfume that didn't smell like her usual warm vanilla thing. This one was sharper, expensive, and a little too loud for a Tuesday. She also got oddly strict about her schedule. Suddenly, my normal routines were inconveniences. If I asked what time she'd be home, she gave me a vague window, not an answer. If I said I'd cook, she said she might already have something, like I was a coworker offering to pick up donuts. I didn't accuse her, I didn't pry, I just watched for patterns. One Wednesday evening, she came home with her hair done in a way that wasn't her everyday style, not the quick brush and go. This was a blowout, glossy and deliberate. She also had a garment bag in her hand like she'd picked up a dress from the cleaners. "Big night?" I asked, keeping it light. She smiled too fast. "Work stuff. We're hosting a small donor meet and greet Friday, nothing crazy." "Nice," I said. "Do you want me to come?" That's when her face did something I hadn't seen before. It was a tiny flash of annoyance, like I'd asked to sit at the head of a table that wasn't mine. "It's not really a +1 thing," she said. "It's for clients and donors." "Got it," I said, and I let it drop. Then she added, "Actually, about Friday." She leaned against the counter, arms crossed, like she was bracing for a negotiation. "We're doing an after thing," she said. "A few people might come back here for drinks, just a handful, nothing wild." "That's fine," I said. "I'll tidy up tomorrow." "No," she said quickly. I was thinking you could be out for a bit." I blinked once. "Out?" "Just for a couple hours," she said, like she was suggesting I go for a scenic walk. "It'll be easier if I'm not juggling introductions and dynamics." "Dynamics," I repeated, because sometimes repeating the word makes people hear themselves. She exhaled, irritated now. "It's complicated, okay?" And then she said the sentence that snapped everything into place. Adrian is going to be there, she said, so do me a favor and disappear for a couple hours so he can relax. If you can't act mature, stay home and don't make it weird. She said it like my presence was the problem, like I was a liability she had to manage, like the man who used to be her boyfriend mattered more than the man who paid half the rent and had his name on the lease. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't ask who Adrian was because I already knew. I'd heard the name before in passing. My ex, Adrian, he works in events too. Adrian used to love that restaurant. Adrian is still friends with some people. It had always been presented as harmless trivia, the way people talk about an old job. But now he had a role. He had a chair at my table. I took a breath, slow. Why is he coming to our house? She rolled her eyes. Because he's connected to donors, because he knows people, because he asked if he could stop by, and before you get dramatic, he's not here for you. He's here for me and for work. That last part was the insult, the clean slice. Not, you're not important, but you don't even factor into the room. I looked at her and I felt something settle inside me. Not anger, not even sadness yet, just clarity. This wasn't an innocent oversight. This was a power play. She wanted me to accept being reduced. So I kept my voice neutral. Okay. She relaxed slightly, like she'd won something. Thank you. I nodded and turned back to the fridge, like I was looking for something, because I didn't want her to see the exact second I decided what I was going to do next. That night she fell asleep fast. I did not. Around midnight I walked into the kitchen. The iPad was on the counter, plugged in, with our shared calendar open because Tessa liked seeing her week at a glance. I didn't snoop through private messages. I didn't try to guess passwords. I didn't need to. The information was sitting there like a billboard. On Friday, there was a calendar entry that read, after meet and greet house. Under it, in smaller notes, Adrian plus 2 donors. Keep Graham out until 9:30. Keep Graham out. Seeing my name typed that way, like a logistics item, made my stomach go cold. It also made the next steps easy, because I wasn't reacting to a feeling anymore. I was responding to a documented plan. I took my phone out and snapped one photo of the calendar entry, timestamped. Then I set the iPad back exactly as it was, because I wasn't trying to catch her in a gotcha. I just needed a record of what I had seen openly on a shared device. The next morning I went to work early. At 7:12 a.m., I pulled up the email from the restaurant where we'd booked the engagement dinner. I found the contract PDF attached. I read the cancellation clause again, slowly, like I was reviewing a vendor agreement. Full refund if canceled at least 21 days in advance. We were still 26 days out. At 7:25 a.m., I emailed the event's coordinator. Subject line, cancellation request, private room reservation, NOV 19. I kept it simple. I said I needed to cancel due to a change in personal circumstances. I asked for written confirmation of the refund. At 7:41 a.m., she replied, Hi Graham, I'm sorry to hear that. Your reservation has been canceled. Refund of $1,000 will be processed back to the original card within 5-7 business days. I saved that email as a PDF and forwarded it to my personal account because I'm careful about records. At 8:10 a.m., I called the jeweler. I didn't yell. I didn't tell them my life story. I said I needed to change the order. The owner, a calm older man, asked if I wanted to cancel. I know the deposit isn't fully refundable, I said, but can we convert the design into a different piece? He paused, then said kindly, we can do that. We can turn it into a pendant, a classic setting, something you can keep, or we can hold it as store credit. Store credit, I said, in my name only. Of course, he said, and I could hear him understand without me explaining. At 8:32 a.m., he emailed me a revised invoice, order adjustment, store credit confirmation, Graham M. The deposit was now a credit balance tied to my customer profile. Legally mine, clean. At 9:05 a.m., I called the utility accounts for our house because my name was the primary contact for electricity and gas. I asked what the process was to remove myself from autopay and set the account to manual billing. The representative explained it and emailed me confirmation. I didn't shut anything off. I didn't leave her in the dark. I simply stopped being the silent safety net. Then I called our property management company. I asked calmly about a roommate release. Our lease had a clause that allowed one tenant to be removed if the remaining tenant qualified on their own and if all parties signed. The manager told me the process. Tessa would need to submit proof of income, sign a new lease, and pay a small administrative fee. If she didn't qualify, we both stayed responsible until the end of the lease term, which was in 4 months. Email me the steps, I said. At 9:27 a.m., I had an email titled, Roommate Release Procedure, Required Documents. That was the moment I felt my calm power kick in fully, because what Tessa thought was a social game was about to meet paperwork. I didn't do anything dramatic. I just started moving my life into boxes. Thursday night, while Tessa was in the shower, I packed what was clearly mine. My clothes, my work documents, my laptop, the framed photo of my late father that had been on my desk, my guitar, the set of tools my grandfather gave me. I left anything that would turn into an argument. I left the couch because we bought it together and I didn't want to debate receipts at midnight. I left the dishes. I left the TV. I took my personal items and my peace. I also took photos of the rooms as they were, not as a threat, just as a record. Again, procurement brain, document the condition. At 6:45 a.m. Friday, I loaded my car and drove to a furnished studio apartment I'd rented for 1 month. It wasn't fancy. It was clean. It had a bed, a small desk, and a door that locked. I de-arranged it quietly earlier in the week after that calendar note. I didn't want to be scrambling while emotions were hot. Before I left our house for the last time that morning, I put one folder on the kitchen table. Inside were printed copies of the cancellation email, the jeweler's store credit confirmation, and the property manager's roommate release instructions. On top, one note in plain handwriting. Tessa, I'm not participating in being managed out of my own home. I have canceled the engagement dinner reservation and moved the ring deposit into my name as store credit. I've rented a place for the month. If you want to keep the house, follow the roommate release procedure with property management and let me know by email. If you don't, we can coordinate moving out and cleaning according to the lease. Keep communication in writing. No insults, no blame, just terms and next steps. Then I left. Around 10:30 a.m., my phone buzzed. It was Tessa calling. I didn't answer. I wasn't trying to punish her. I just wasn't going to have a live argument. I let it go to voicemail. She left a message that started with a fake laugh. What is this? Are you serious right now? Call me. I did not call. At 11:12 a.m., she texted, You're being ridiculous. It was just for work. At 11:29 a.m., so you're really doing this today, on the day of the event. I replied once and only once, because clarity is kinder than silence. I'm not available for a phone conversation. Email me if you want to discuss lease logistics. I could almost hear her grinding her teeth through the screen. That afternoon, I went about my day. I set up my studio. I bought groceries. I made a simple dinner. I didn't picture what she was doing. I didn't imagine her party. I kept my mind where it belonged, on my future. At 9:58 p.m., I got an email from Tessa with the subject line, Seriously, it wasn't calm. It was a storm in paragraphs. She wrote that I was humiliating her, that I had no empathy, that I was sabotaging her career, that Adrian was just a friend from the past, that I was acting like an insecure teenager. She said I was making her look bad. Not one sentence acknowledged that she had tried to remove me from my own home, like I was a potted plant she didn't want in the frame. I waited until the next morning to respond, because emotions burn off overnight. I replied with 3 sentences. I'm not debating whether it was appropriate to tell me to leave my home for your ex. I'm also not discussing your feelings about my choices. If you want to pursue the roommate release, follow the attached instructions and confirm by email. I attached the property manager's email again, like a teacher repeating the assignment. That's when she showed up at the studio. I didn't open the door right away, not because I was afraid, but because I wanted the interaction to stay controlled. I looked through the peephole and saw her standing there in leggings and a sweatshirt, hair pulled back, face tight. She wasn't there to reconcile. She was there to regain control of the narrative. I opened the door a few inches and stepped into the hallway so she couldn't push past me. Are you out of your mind? She hissed, like we were in a movie. I kept my voice low. This is not a good place for a conversation. You're throwing away 2 years because of one night, she said. You're punishing me. I'm refusing a role, I said. There's a difference. She scoffed. He's not my ex in that way anymore. You're acting like he's some threat. I'm not competing, I said. You asked me to vacate my own home so he could feel comfortable. That's the fact." Her eyes flashed. I didn't say it like that. I didn't argue wording. I didn't need to. "I saw the calendar note," I said calmly, "on the iPad, the one that said to keep me out until 9:30. Her mouth opened, then closed. For a second, the mask slipped. Then came the minimization. "It was a joke. It was a reminder. You're twisting things." Then the blame. "If you weren't so sensitive, this wouldn't be an issue." Then the insult. "You're cold. You don't know how to be supportive." Then the tears, sudden and sharp. "I can't believe you're doing this to me." I watched the sequence play out like a script. I didn't interrupt. When she finally paused, I said the only thing that mattered. "I'm not here to punish you. I'm here to protect myself. If you want to communicate, email me. I'm closing the door now." She tried one last push. "So that's it, you're just leaving." I kept my expression neutral. "I'm moving forward." I closed the door. After that, she tried 3 different angles. First, the unknown number calls. Over the next week, I got multiple calls from numbers with my area code, but different last 4 digits. I let them go to voicemail. One voicemail was Tessa's voice, softer now, almost sweet. "Please, just talk to me. I'm sorry you felt that way." I didn't respond to voicemail apologies. I respond to written accountability, and she wasn't offering that. Second, she emailed me again with a different subject line, "lease stuff." For a moment, I thought we'd reached the practical stage. Instead, the email was a long paragraph about how I owed her the chance to explain, how everyone thought I was overreacting, how I was ruining her stability. She slipped in, almost casually, that Adrian had been stressed lately and she was helping him through a rough patch. So he wasn't just a guest, he was a project. I replied with one sentence, "Please keep emails limited to lease and bills." Third, she sent an intermediary. A woman named Denise, one of Tessa's older coworkers, emailed me from a business address. The subject line was, "A message from Tessa." It was politely worded and full of phrases like miscommunication and healing and people make mistakes. I didn't bite. I replied, "Denise, I appreciate your concern, but I'm only discussing lease matters directly with Tessa by email." Then I created an email filter. Anything from Tessa that didn't include the word lease in the subject line went into a folder. Not deleted, not hidden, just organized because you never know when you'll need a timeline. Now here's the part people call karma, but it wasn't magic, it was math. Tessa couldn't afford the house alone. She made good money, but Santa Fe rents don't care about your job title. The property manager confirmed it when she applied for the roommate release. She didn't meet the income requirement without a cosigner. They denied her. That meant we were both still responsible on paper. But I wasn't going to keep living in a situation where I was being treated like an inconvenience. So I offered a clean option in writing. We either find a replacement tenant together, or we both give notice and pay the lease break fee, split evenly, as allowed by the contract. When money becomes real, people stop playing games. She tried to negotiate emotionally. She wanted me to be nice and keep paying while she figured it out. I didn't argue. I just repeated the options. Meanwhile, Adrian did exactly what men like Adrian do when the spotlight fades. A mutual friend I hadn't spoken to much, someone from Tessa's circles, messaged me privately and asked if I was okay. I didn't spill details. I just said I was fine in handling logistics. She responded, "For what it's worth, Adrian is telling people he's basically moved in with Tessa." That told me everything without me needing to investigate. 2 weeks later, Tessa emailed me at 2:17 a.m. Subject line, "Please." It was the first email that didn't come with an insult. She wrote that Adrian had borrowed money from her for some urgent issue. She wrote that he'd shown up to the house after the meet and greet multiple times, that he was going through stuff, and she'd been trying to help. She wrote that her friends were confused and that she felt like she'd lost control of everything. She didn't say the words, "I'm sorry for telling you to leave," not directly, but she described the consequences of choosing him over me like she was reading the invoice for her decision. I replied the next morning with something practical. "Tessa, I'm sorry you're stressed. I'm not the person to help you process Adrian. I can help finalize the lease plan. Please choose one of the options by Friday so we can meet the property management deadlines." That's what quiet power looks like in real life. You don't have to be cruel. You just have to stop being available for disrespect. By mid-November, the pressure forced a resolution. We agreed to break the lease. The property manager required a standard fee equal to 1 month's rent. We split it. We coordinated a move-out date. I hired a cleaner for my half and emailed her the receipt. I showed up, collected the last of my items, and left the place in better condition than we found it, because that's who I am. Tessa, on the other hand, had to scramble for a new apartment on short notice. She ended up in a smaller place farther from her work, with higher monthly rent because the market was tight. Her car got towed once because she didn't read the parking rules. Her donor event apparently didn't go the way she'd hoped because Adrian showed up late and made it about himself. One of her coworkers posted a public photo album from that night, and in one photo, Adrian had his arm around Tessa like he owned the room. People noticed. People talk. Hospitality is a small world. None of that was me. That was her choices colliding with reality. For my part, life got quieter in the best way. I used the jeweler's store credit to buy a simple watch I'd wanted for years, something understated and solid. I moved into a different rental on the other side of town, closer to my job, with a little patio and a view of the mountains when the air was clear. I started hiking again. I started cooking meals that weren't timed around someone else's moods. I slept through the night. 2 months later, in early January, I traveled to Albuquerque for a procurement training. The city was colder than Santa Fe that week, windier, the kind of cold that gets into your hands. After the class let out, I stopped at a small bookstore near Old Town because I like quiet places with paper and space. I was in the history section, flipping through a book about railroads in the Southwest, when I heard my name. Grams. I looked up and saw Tessa standing a few feet away. She looked thinner, tired around the eyes. She was wearing a coat that didn't quite fit right, like she'd grabbed it in a hurry. She smiled like we were old friends who had simply lost touch. I didn't know you'd be here, she said. I'm in town for work, I said, calm, polite. She stepped closer. Can we talk, just for a minute? I didn't step back, but I didn't step toward her either. What do you need? Her eyes flicked around the bookstore, like she wanted an audience without actually having one. I miss you. I've been doing a lot of thinking. I nodded once. I hope you're doing okay. She swallowed. Adrian is gone. He's not in my life anymore. I didn't react because that information wasn't a key to my door. It was just a detail. She waited like she expected that to change the math. When I didn't move, her voice got softer. I didn't mean to hurt you. I didn't think. I know, I said gently, because I did know. She hadn't thought. That was the problem. She reached for my arm like she used to, and I shifted the book in my hands so she couldn't. No drama, just a boundary. Tessa, I said steady, I'm not carrying this back into my life. I hope you build something better for yourself, but I'm not available. Her face tightened. So that's it. It's finished for me, I said, simple, Klein. She stood there for a second, like she wanted to argue, but we were surrounded by quiet shelves and strangers who didn't care about our history. There was nowhere for a scene to land. Finally, she nodded, too fast, like she was trying to save face. Okay, yeah, take care. You too, I said. I watched her walk out into the cold, and I felt nothing sharp. No triumph, no bitterness, just relief that I'd chosen myself the first time she tried to make me smaller. If you've been in a relationship where respect got traded for someone else's comfort, tell me what you would have done in the comments.